Parents didn't book a room for me on our family Christmas trip. My sister mocked. We reserved rooms for me, my husband, and my child. We're the real family. I calmly said, then I'll leave, and walked out. I called my grandpa hours later. They were already begging me to come back, but it was too late. This happened last year, and I'm finally ready to tell this story. It's long, but trust me, the ending is absolutely worth it. My family thought they could treat me like garbage and get away with it. They were very, very wrong. This is probably the most satisfying revenge story you'll read today. Background: I, 34 male, live in Denver, making around $175,000 annually. I know that sounds decent, but wait until you hear about the rest of my family and their ridiculous spending habits. This story involves years of family dysfunction, public humiliation, and the most epic comeback you can imagine. Let me paint you a detailed picture of my childhood and why this revenge was so incredibly satisfying. While my sister Ashley was winning beauty pageants and dating star athletes, I was the weird kid who actually cared about grades, saving money, and building a real future. My parents, Robert and Linda, made it crystal clear from the beginning who their golden child was and who was just taking up space. When Ashley turned 16, she got a brand new BMW with a giant red bow on top. I'm talking about a $40,000 car for a teenager who didn't even have a job. The whole neighborhood came out to watch her squeal and jump around like she'd won the lottery. She posted about it on every social media platform, calling it the best day ever, and thanking her amazing parents. When I turned 18, I got a used Honda Civic with 180,000 miles that my dad bought from his coworker for $1,500. It builds character, he said, while Ashley smirked in the background, probably already planning her next expensive request. College was even worse, and really set the stage for everything that happened later. I worked my rear end off at 2 part-time jobs while studying finance. I'm talking about stocking shelves at a grocery store from 6 p.m. to midnight, then working weekend shifts at a local restaurant. I graduated summa cum laude with a 3.0, 9 GPA, and still ended up with $43,000 in student loans because I refused to ask my parents for help after seeing how they treated financial requests. Ashley, meanwhile, went to some expensive private liberal arts school where she studied communications, which basically meant learning how to look pretty and marry someone rich. She joined the most expensive sorority, went on spring break trips to Europe, and never worked a single day during her 4 years. Guess who paid her full tuition, room and board, and spending money? Spoiler alert, it definitely wasn't Ashley. My parents acted like funding her lifestyle was just a normal part of being good parents, while treating my financial independence like some kind of character flaw. Right after graduation, Ashley hit what she considered the ultimate jackpot. She married this guy named Brad, who works in commercial real estate development and supposedly makes serious money. We're talking north of $400,000 annually, according to Ashley, who never misses a chance to mention exact figures at family gatherings. Suddenly, she's living in this massive 8-bedroom house in the most exclusive suburb, driving a Tesla Model S and posting Instagram stories from Cabo, Dubai, and the Maldives every other month. Her social media became this carefully curated display of wealth that honestly made me embarrassed for her. Meanwhile, I'm grinding 70-hour weeks, eating ramen for dinner, and slowly chipping away at my debt like a responsible adult. Don't get me wrong, I did really well for myself through hard work and smart decisions. I've got about $160,000 saved up now, my loans are completely paid off, and I max out my 401k and IRA every single year. I drive a reliable Toyota Camry that's completely paid off and live in a nice but modest 2-bedroom apartment. I'm dating this amazing woman Sarah, who's a nurse practitioner, making around $90,000. She's down to earth, saves money, invests wisely, and basically represents everything Ashley isn't. But apparently being financially responsible and living within your actual means makes you boring and unsuccessful, according to my family. Ashley never misses an opportunity to take passive-aggressive shots at my lifestyle choices. At family gatherings, she'll make comments like, "Finn, when are you going to get a real job that pays enough to actually enjoy life instead of just surviving?" Or, "Maybe if you spent less time obsessing over spreadsheets and more time networking with successful people, you'd understand how the world actually works." She'd say this while showing off whatever new designer purchase she'd made that week. She always delivers these comments with this fake, concerned voice that makes me want to scream. Like she's genuinely worried about my sad little existence, while she's showing off her newest Louis Vuitton handbag that costs more than most people's monthly rent. The worst part was watching my parents nod along, like her criticism was completely valid and helpful. Here's the thing that makes this whole story even more satisfying, though. Our grandfather William built a construction empire from absolutely nothing. We're talking about a true self-made success story. He started with a pickup truck, a toolbox, and a willingness to work 16-hour days in all weather conditions. Through decades of hard work, smart investments, and treating people fairly, he ended up owning one of the largest construction companies in Colorado. The man is worth somewhere between $8 and $10 million, and he's always been passionate about teaching family values like hard work, saving money, and earning what you get through merit rather than handouts. Somehow that lesson only stuck with me. The rest of my family treats Grandpa like their personal ATM machine. They all live these completely inflated lifestyles, funded entirely by his generosity, then have the absolute nerve to look down on me for being unsuccessful and unmotivated. The irony was completely lost on them. Every year, Grandpa organizes this elaborate family Christmas trip to bring everyone together and maintain family bonds. He pays for absolutely everything because he believes family unity is worth any price. Last year's trip was supposed to be at some fancy ski resort in Colorado. I was actually looking forward to it because work had been absolutely brutal, and I desperately needed a break from the constant stress. That anticipation made what happened next even more devastating. The Christmas trip was planned for this luxury ski resort in Vail that charges $1,200 per night for basic rooms. We're talking about $200 dinners, $300 spa treatments, and lift tickets that cost more than most people spend on groceries in a week. Grandpa had booked everything months in advance because he wanted this particular trip to be extra special for reasons I didn't understand at the time. I drove up from Denver after finishing a major project at work on Friday, finally arriving at the resort around 8 in the evening. The place was absolutely ridiculous in the most ostentatious way possible. Picture exposed wood beams that probably cost more than my car, natural stonework that looked like it belonged in a museum, and massive fireplaces with chimneys you could probably fit a small person inside. People were walking around in ski gear that easily cost $5,000 per outfit, casually discussing their plans for helicopter skiing and private mountain tours. I felt a little underdressed in my normal Columbia winter jacket and basic snow pants, but I figured nobody would really care. I was there to spend time with family, not compete in some kind of fashion show. Boy, was I wrong about that assumption. I walked up to the front desk with my simple duffel bag, gave the clerk my name, and waited while she typed away at her computer with increasing confusion. She started frowning, then typing more aggressively. More frowning followed by frustrated sighing. Finally, she called over her supervisor, who began the same process with identical results. "I'm very sorry, sir, but I don't see any reservation under your name in our system. Let me try different spellings and check if it might be under a family member's name." That's when I heard Ashley's voice behind me, and I immediately knew something was wrong just from her tone. There was this weird theatrical quality to it that I recognized from childhood whenever she was about to cause trouble. "Oh my goodness, Finn! You actually made it! I wasn't sure you'd be able to get time off from your little job." But she sounded way too cheerful, like she was putting on a performance for an invisible audience. I turned around and there she was in some designer ski outfit that probably cost more than I spend on clothes in an entire year. We're talking about a jacket that was clearly custom fitted, pants that had some kind of metallic threading, and boots that looked like they belonged in a fashion magazine rather than on an actual mountain. She had this weird smirk on her face that I recognized from childhood, the exact same expression she'd get right before telling mom and dad that I'd supposedly done something wrong to get me in trouble. The front desk staff kept frantically searching their computer system, while other guests started gathering behind me, clearly getting annoyed by the delay. You could feel the tension building as expensive people in expensive clothes waited for this situation to resolve itself. Ashley stepped closer and said just loud enough for everyone to hear, "How very strange that there's no room reserved for you. I wonder how that could have happened." Then she leaned in closer and lowered her voice to what she probably thought was a whisper. "Actually, Finn, I had a long conversation with Grandpa about the sleeping arrangements for this trip. We both decided we only needed rooms for the real family members this year." Then she raised her voice again. "You know, people who actually contribute something meaningful to family gatherings instead of just showing up expecting handouts." I felt my stomach completely drop as the implications hit me. "What are you talking about, Ashley?" Grandpa invited everyone personally. "Well, we have the presidential family suite for me and Brad, and our twin boys. Mom and Dad have their lovely corner room with the mountain view." She paused dramatically, clearly enjoying every second of this. "I guess there just wasn't space for everyone who wanted to come. You understand how expensive these places are, right?" The lobby had gone completely quiet except for the crackling of the fireplace. I looked around and spotted my parents sitting in leather chairs near the main fireplace. When I made direct eye contact with them, they both immediately turned away like cowards. Brad was standing near the concierge desk scrolling through his phone like absolutely nothing was happening. Their twin 8-year-old boys were running around the lobby, completely oblivious to the adult drama unfolding around them. Ashley continued her carefully planned performance. I mean, let's be realistic here. It's not like you could afford to stay at a place like this anyway on your little analyst salary. Maybe there's a Holiday Inn or Super 8 motel down the mountain somewhere? She actually started giggling while saying this, like the idea of me staying at a budget hotel was the funniest thing she'd ever imagined. Several other guests were now openly staring at our family drama. The front desk clerk looked absolutely mortified, probably wondering if she should call security. The supervisor was pretending to be busy with important paperwork, while obviously listening to every single word of this humiliating conversation. Ashley, what the heck is going on here? Grandpa specifically invited me and confirmed my attendance. Oh, sweetie, Grandpa understood completely when I carefully explained the real situation to him. We need to prioritize the people who actually matter to this family's future success. She gestured dramatically toward Brad, who still hadn't looked up from his phone. I mean, Brad's company just closed a $15 million commercial development deal last month. That's real success. That's the kind of achievement we should be celebrating and supporting as a family unit. Something clicked in my brain at that exact moment. This wasn't some innocent misunderstanding or computer error. Ashley had deliberately and carefully planned this entire scenario. She wanted to humiliate me in front of complete strangers to prove some twisted point about family hierarchy and her perceived superiority. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I stood there for maybe 20 seconds, just processing what was happening, while Ashley watched my face with obvious satisfaction. She was clearly enjoying herself immensely, probably expecting me to beg for help or make some kind of desperate scene that would embarrass me even more. My parents were still avoiding eye contact like the cowards they'd always been. Brad continued pretending that none of this was happening. The other hotel guests were getting increasingly uncomfortable with this public family meltdown. Then something completely unexpected happened. Instead of feeling angry or hurt like Ashley obviously wanted, I felt this strange sense of crystal clear clarity, like puzzle pieces that had been scattered for years, suddenly clicking into their proper places to reveal a picture I'd never seen before. You know what, Ashley? You're absolutely right about everything. Her confident smile faltered slightly as confusion crossed her face. I'm sorry. What did you say? You're completely right. I should definitely leave this place immediately. I pulled out my phone and opened a rideshare app with deliberate calm. I hope you and the real family have an absolutely wonderful Christmas together. Now she looked genuinely confused, because this clearly wasn't the reaction she had carefully planned for. Wait, that's it? You're just giving up without even trying to fix this? Nope. I'm making a conscious choice based on new information. Have fun explaining to Grandpa tomorrow morning why I'm mysteriously not here for Christmas breakfast. Grandpa will understand completely when I tell him how inappropriate and dramatic you've been acting about this whole situation. I turned around one final time and gave her the biggest, most genuine smile I'd had in months. I'm absolutely sure he will, Ashley. I'm completely confident that he'll understand everything perfectly. The rideshare down the mountain gave me plenty of time to think clearly, for the first time in years, and plan. See, Ashley had made one crucial miscalculation that was about to destroy her entire fake life. She assumed I was still the same powerless little brother she used to pick on when we were kids. She had absolutely no idea what kind of position I was actually in, or what I knew about the family's real financial situation. Here's what Ashley didn't know, and why her little stunt was about to backfire in the most spectacular way possible. First, I've been helping Grandpa with his business finances for the past 6 years. Not officially on any paperwork, but whenever he had questions about investments, tax strategies, retirement planning, or financial analysis, he'd call me directly. I know more about his money, his concerns, and his future plans than anyone else in the entire family combined. Second, I'm the person who convinced him to modernize his record keeping and move everything to secure digital systems. I personally helped set up his online banking, organized his investment accounts, and digitized decades of paper records. I have legitimate access to financial information that would make Ashley's head spin if she had any idea what I could see. Third, and most importantly, for what was about to happen, Grandpa has been getting increasingly worried about the family's spending habits and sense of entitlement. He's made several pointed comments over the years about people who live beyond their means and expect handouts instead of earning their way through life. He specifically mentioned being deeply concerned about what would happen to his hard-earned money after he's gone and whether anyone in the family actually understands its value. I called Grandpa from the airport while waiting for my flight back to Denver. Finn, what's wrong? Aren't you supposed to be at the resort with everyone else? I told him exactly what happened with complete honesty. No drama, no emotional manipulation, no exaggeration, just the plain facts. How Ashley had deliberately excluded me from the room reservations, her specific comments about real family members, the public humiliation in front of other hotel guests, and my parents' cowardly refusal to defend their own son. The silence on the other end of the line lasted about 45 seconds, which felt like an eternity. When Grandpa finally spoke again, his voice had completely changed from warm and concerned to ice-cold and determined. I see. Well, I think it's time some people in this family learned about real consequences for their actions. Grandpa, you don't have to do anything drastic. I'm completely fine, really. I'll just spend Christmas at home. Finn, can you come to my office first thing Monday morning? I need to discuss some very important business matters with you. And bring your laptop and any financial analysis software you have. That's when I knew Ashley had just made the biggest mistake of her entire life. Monday morning, I'm sitting in Grandpa's office, which looks like a museum of American business success. Dark wood paneling covers every wall, leather chairs that have probably been there since the 1960s, and dozens of awards and photos from 40 years in the construction business. Grandpa looks tired but absolutely determined in a way that reminded me why he'd been so successful for so many decades. Finn, I want to know exactly how much money I've given your parents and sister over the years. Every single penny, every gift, every loan, every emergency payment. Can you help me compile that information into a comprehensive analysis? This is where my financial analysis background became incredibly useful in ways I'd never imagined. I spent the next week going through bank records, transfer logs, tax documents, canceled checks, and digital payment records. Grandpa gave me complete access to his personal accounts, business accounts, and financial records going back 20 years. What I discovered was absolutely mind-blowing and worse than even I had suspected. Over the past decade alone, here's what I found. Ashley had received $49,000 for her wedding, which she claimed was just enough to cover the basic expenses. But I found receipts showing they spent over $78,000 total. She got $32,000 as a down payment gift for their house, then another $28,000 2 years later when they decided they wanted to upgrade their kitchen with granite countertops and professional appliances. For the past 5 years, she's been receiving $3,800 every single month as help with the children's expenses and cost of living adjustments. That's over $228,000 right there in direct monthly payments. But wait, there's significantly more. Emergency loans that were never paid back, $43,000 for a business opportunity that never materialized. Investment opportunities that somehow never generated any returns, $37,000 for various schemes. Birthday and Christmas gifts that cost more than most people's annual car payments, probably another $60,000 over the years. Vacation funding, jewelry purchases, furniture allowances. The list was absolutely endless. My parents weren't any better and had been working the same system for years. Grandpa paid off their mortgage early when they claimed they were struggling with retirement planning, $91,000. He's been supplementing their retirement income with $3,000 per month for the past 6 years because their savings were insufficient for the lifestyle they deserved. Over $216,000. Home renovations, medical bills, car payments, insurance premiums, emergency repairs, and unexpected expenses. Probably another $75,000 in miscellaneous handouts. When I added everything up, I'm talking about well over $650,000 in direct handouts to these people over just the past decade. And that doesn't include smaller gifts, meals, vacations, and other benefits that were harder to quantify. Meanwhile, I had asked Grandpa for help exactly once in my entire adult life. A $5,000 loan when I was between jobs for 3 months after college. I paid it back with interest within 4 months and never asked for anything else. But here's where the investigation got really interesting and revealed just how fake their lifestyle actually was. I decided to do some serious digging into Ashley and Brad's actual financial situation using public records databases that I have access to through my job. I know how to read financial documents, court filings, and business records in ways that most people don't. What I found was absolutely shocking. Their house is mortgaged to the absolute maximum limit. They owe $732,000 on a property that's currently worth maybe $650,000 in today's market. Both of their luxury cars are leased, not owned, which means they're paying monthly fees for vehicles that will never belong to them. Ashley's credit card debt is completely insane. I found evidence of at least 12 different accounts with significant balances totaling over $90,000. But the real bombshell was Brad's supposedly successful business. Remember how Ashley loves bragging about his $15 million deal and $400,000 annual income? Well, according to public business filings, Brad's company has been struggling badly for the past 2 years. 3 major development projects fell through due to financing issues. His biggest commercial client terminated their contract in September after delays and cost overruns. The business has defaulted on 2 significant construction loans and is basically operating on borrowed time and credit extensions. They're living a completely fraudulent lifestyle, funded entirely by massive debt and Grandpa's monthly payments. Without that $3,800 every single month, they'd be filing for bankruptcy within 60 days. Their entire social media persona is built on money they don't actually have. When I presented all this information to Grandpa in a detailed written report, he just sat there quietly for about 15 minutes, slowly flipping through the documents with increasing anger. Finally, he looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before and said, very interesting indeed. I think it's time for some people to learn what real consequences feel like." 3 weeks after the ski resort incident, Grandpa called a mandatory family meeting at his house. He told everyone it was to discuss important financial planning matters and estate planning issues, and that attendance was absolutely not optional for anyone who wanted to remain in his will. I arrived early to help him prepare what would become the most satisfying presentation of my entire life. He had printed out everything: bank statements, transfer records, loan documents, property records, business filings, credit reports, all organized in neat folders with each family member's name written on the front in his careful handwriting. Ashley showed up 25 minutes late in her Tesla Model S, wearing another ridiculously expensive outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She seemed genuinely annoyed at having to be there, like this was somehow an inconvenience to her busy schedule of spending other people's money and posting about it online. Brad looked increasingly uncomfortable from the moment he walked in. I think he was starting to realize their financial house of cards was getting extremely shaky. My parents arrived acting like absolutely nothing had happened at Christmas. No apology, no acknowledgement, no explanation for their cowardly behavior. Just business as usual, probably assuming this meeting was about increasing their monthly allowance or discussing inheritance details. Grandpa started the meeting very formally. "I've asked everyone here today because I've been conducting a comprehensive review of my financial support to this family over the past 15 years. Finn helped me compile some very eye-opening information, and I think it's time we had a completely honest conversation about money, entitlement, and family values." He handed out the folders with theatrical precision. I watched Ashley's face carefully as she opened hers and started reading the numbers laid out in black and white. The color literally drained from her cheeks as she realized the scope of what she was looking at. "Now," Grandpa continued in his most businesslike tone, "I want each of you to carefully review those numbers, and then explain to me why you believe you're entitled to this level of ongoing financial support." Ashley immediately went into full victim mode. "Grandpa, you know raising children is incredibly expensive these days. Brad and I work so hard to provide for our family, and with the economy being so uncertain and unpredictable..." "Ashley," Grandpa's voice cut through her whining like a knife through butter. "According to these documents, your husband supposedly makes $400,000 annually. Please explain to me in specific terms why you require an additional $45,000 per year from me to maintain your lifestyle." "Well, the house payment is really high because we wanted the boys to grow up in a good neighborhood, and they have activities and sports, and we have other necessary expenses that you wouldn't understand. You chose to buy a house you couldn't afford. You chose to lease luxury vehicles instead of buying reliable transportation. You chose to enroll your children in expensive private programs instead of excellent public alternatives. These were your conscious decisions, made with the assumption that I would subsidize your lifestyle choices indefinitely." My parents tried to jump in and redirect attention. "Dad, you know how much we appreciate everything you've done for us over the years, but retirement planning is really complicated these days with inflation and medical costs. You retired at 62 specifically because you knew I would supplement your income indefinitely. You made minimal effort to save adequately for retirement because you assumed I would handle all your financial responsibilities. You treated my generosity as an entitlement rather than a gift." The tension in the room was becoming thick enough to cut with a knife. Ashley was starting to panic as she realized this wasn't going according to any script she'd imagined. "Grandpa, what exactly are you trying to say here? Are you threatening us?" "I'm saying that effective immediately, all financial support to this family is being permanently terminated." The explosion was immediate, predictable, and absolutely satisfying to watch. Ashley started her fake crying routine with crocodile tears and dramatic sobbing. My parents began talking over each other frantically about their fixed income and medical expenses and retirement security. Brad just sat there looking like he wanted to disappear through the floor. But Grandpa wasn't finished delivering his verdict. Furthermore, I'm deeply disappointed and personally offended by how Finn was treated during our Christmas trip. The deliberate exclusion and public humiliation were completely unacceptable and showed me exactly what kind of people you've become when you think nobody important is watching. Ashley's fake tears immediately transformed into pure rage. This is about him? Are you seriously doing this because of him? He's a grown man. He should be able to take care of himself without running to Grandpa like a little baby. Yes, Ashley. He should be able to take care of himself, and he does. He has never asked me for ongoing support. He paid off his student loans through his own work. He lives within his actual means. He treats family members with respect and dignity. You might want to consider learning from his example instead of mocking it. Oh, please! He's a boring loser who stares at spreadsheets all day and has no social life. Brad makes 3 times what he makes. We're the successful ones in this family. We're the ones who matter. That's when Grandpa pulled out one final folder with a slight smile. Actually, Ashley, speaking of Brad's tremendous success, he looked directly at Brad, who had gone completely pale and started sweating. Finn, would you like to share what your financial analysis revealed about the commercial real estate business? This is probably where any decent person should have felt sorry for them. But I didn't. Not even slightly. They had this coming for years. I opened my laptop and pulled up the detailed financial analysis I'd prepared specifically for this moment. Well, based on public records, business filings, and financial documents, Brad's company is essentially bankrupt and has been operating on borrowed time for months. Brad's face went from pale to green as he realized his fake empire was about to crumble in front of everyone. Finn, you had absolutely no right to investigate my private business affairs. Actually, I had every right. This is all publicly available information through state business registries and court filings. Your company has defaulted on 4 major construction loans in the past 2 years, totaling over $2 million. Your largest commercial client terminated their contract in September after citing delays, cost overruns, and quality issues. You haven't successfully closed a development deal worth more than $60,000 since last summer. Ashley was looking back and forth between me and Brad like she couldn't process what she was hearing. The fake world she'd built on social media was crashing down in real time. I continued with methodical precision. Your personal finances are even worse than your business situation. Your house is underwater on the mortgage by approximately $82,000. You're carrying $97,000 in credit card debt across 14 different accounts. Your vehicle lease payments alone cost $2,200 per month, which is more than most families spend on housing. The silence in the room was absolutely deafening. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Grandpa spoke up with obvious satisfaction. Finn, what did your analysis reveal about Ashley's personal spending patterns? Based on credit card statements, bank records, and social media activity analysis, I estimate Ashley spends approximately $4,500 per month on clothes, accessories, beauty treatments, spa visits, and entertainment. That's more than twice what the average American family spends on housing, and it doesn't include the money she spends on vacations and luxury experiences. Ashley finally completely lost control. You absolute psychopath! Who gave you the right to investigate my personal life like some kind of creepy stalker? This is insane. You did, Ashley, when you decided to humiliate me in public and exclude me from family events. When you made it crystal clear that you consider me inferior to your supposedly successful husband. When you treated me like garbage in front of strangers. Actions have consequences, and you're about to learn what those consequences look like. Grandpa stood up slowly, with the dignity of a man who'd built an empire through hard work. I think we've covered everything we need to discuss today. You all have some very serious decisions to make about your futures. Finn, could you please stay behind for a few minutes? I have something important to discuss with you privately. My parents and Ashley's family filed out of the house in complete chaos. Ashley was screaming about how unfair everything was and how I had destroyed the family with my psychotic behavior. Brad looked like he was going to be physically sick. My parents just looked utterly defeated and lost. After they left, Grandpa sat back down and actually smiled at me with genuine warmth for the first time in weeks. You know, Finn, I've been thinking quite a bit about updating my will and estate planning lately. My estate planning attorney thinks it's definitely time to make some very significant changes to reflect my current understanding of family values and responsibility. 8 months have passed since that family meeting, and the results have been absolutely spectacular beyond my wildest dreams. Brad's business officially filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in April. They lost the house to foreclosure and had to move into a small two-bedroom rental apartment in a much less desirable part of town. Both luxury cars were repossessed within 6 weeks when they couldn't make the lease payments. Ashley had to get her first real job in over a decade. She's working at a department store making $13 per hour and absolutely hating every minute of it. Her social media went completely dark because she can't afford the lifestyle she used to fake. My parents had to sell their house and downsize to a tiny one-bedroom condo in a retirement community they can actually afford. Dad came out of retirement and got a job as a part-time cashier at a hardware store. Mom is working the register at a grocery store. They're both completely miserable and constantly stressed about money for the first time in decades. The twins had to transfer from their expensive private school to public school, which Ashley complained about constantly until she realized nobody cared about her problems anymore. But here's the absolute best part that makes this whole story perfect. They all started calling me desperately begging for help. It started with my parents about 3 months after the meeting. Finn, sweetheart, we're so sorry about what happened at Christmas. We should have defended you against Ashley. We realize now how wrong we were to treat you that way. Could you maybe talk to Grandpa for us? We're really struggling with these bills and we don't know what we're going to do. I told them I'd consider helping if they wrote me a detailed handwritten letter acknowledging exactly how they'd treated me over the years and taking full responsibility for their choices and behavior. They actually did it, spending pages apologizing and admitting their mistakes, but it was obviously just desperate damage control. Then Brad called me about 2 months ago. Look, man, I know we got off on the wrong foot, and Ashley really regrets how she handled the Christmas situation. She feels terrible about everything. Is there any way you could help us out? Maybe a small loan to get us back on our feet? I promise I'll pay you back with interest as soon as business picks up again. I laughed out loud and hung up on him immediately. But the most satisfying call came from Ashley herself about 6 weeks ago, and I recorded it because I knew this day would come. Finn, please. I know I messed up really badly. I was completely wrong about everything. I was horrible to you, and I'm genuinely sorry. But I'm absolutely desperate here. The boys keep asking why we had to move, why Mommy has to work now, why we can't go on vacation anymore, why their friends can't come over to our apartment. I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly on social media. I'll admit I was wrong about everything. I'll tell everyone you were right. Just please help us get back to normal. Ashley, I have just one question for you, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Anything. Ask me anything you want. When you excluded me from that hotel reservation and told everyone it was only for the real family, did you think for even 1 second about how that would make me feel as your brother? Complete silence for about 30 seconds. Did you consider that I'm your brother and I deserved basic respect and dignity regardless of how much money I make? Finn, I was just trying to... No, Ashley. You humiliated me because you thought I was weak and pathetic. You thought I needed you more than you needed me. You assumed I would always be there as your backup plan. You were completely wrong on every single count. Please, Finn, I'm literally begging you here. I'll get on my knees if that's what you want. You know what? You're absolutely right. You are begging me. And do you know how that makes me feel? It makes me feel like maybe there's some real justice in the world after all. I hung up and immediately blocked her number permanently,